Hi, I'm your host Megalon Jones, and welcome back to the sharp end of the stick for another combat mission Cold War scenario. This time, the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment is screening the forward advance of the 8th Guard Army a little bit beyond the Fulda Valley. In terms of active defense, this kind of represents what you would be seeing all along the inner German border, as the order of the day would be limited opportunistic counterattacks in order to throw the Red Army off of its tempo of operations. And doing so, the 11th ACR is probing the flanks. This is a meeting engagement, and we are expected to meet other reconnaissance forces of the Red Army. The terrain analysis, it's sort of like a broken record at this point. Valleys, hills, tree lines. We have the village of Sichausen. Zeichenhausen? I want to apologize. My German doesn't exist. Uh, Basically, we have one objective, which is to grab the bridge at Zeichenhausen. We are expecting a forward screen of Soviet troops there. Nothing we can't handle. We've been given one platoon uh, of A Troop, 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment, and they are supported by 1st Platoon Bravo Company, the 58th Engineer Battalion. The main point of this map is there is a large hill, a mountain, and I intend to seize that ground as it dominates everything in the valley. In order to get to their objectives, the Soviets are going to have to crest this mountain and either flow to the left or right over the center. And either way, it should be offering me opportune shots at whatever's coming down the other side of the hill. Okay, so the plan is I'm sending the engineers up to the village. They are going to be preceded by a artillery barrage to soften up whatever is there in the village. We're sending the armored cavalry troops up to the hill, grab favorable defensive terrain, and await whatever's coming our way. As with any meeting engagement in combat mission, you basically have to haul ass in order to seize the favorable terrain before the opposing force does. So there isn't going to be a whole lot of finesse involved with this at all. Taking a bit of a calculated risk, I'm assuming that the Soviets aren't developed in the village as much, so I'm splitting up my forces. It's 1100 hours, and it's go time. Both wings of the advance are able to get out of the start zone without any problem at all, and the engineers are able to use the forward slope of a hill as cover to dismount and begin their advance into Zeichenhausen. Meanwhile, on the opposite end of the map, we're able to make our first spots. It's the terrible twosome again, the BMP infantry fighting vehicle backed up by T-64 main battle tanks. Since my last run-in with these guys, I've taken the time to come up with a little bit more of a standard operating procedure. My tanks have the thermal tank system, so I've been thinking about how to employ it the best in this exact given situation. I take a handful of casualties storming Zeichenhausen. Um, there is Soviet dismount hiding in the buildings, but I have detached one of the cavalry scouts M60A3s, and whatever resistance they come into contact with, the small arms fire and the M60 make really short work of it. I do run into a single BRDM, and he's taken care of, no problem. The fight in Sichausen is pretty much anticlimactic. We more or less storm the village, exterminate the Red Army troops that are there, and take up positions within the village to meet the expected Soviet thrust down the hillside. Is going on, 1st Platoon A Troop is able to set up its own defensive positions, and our forward observer team is able to make out quite a bit of movement from the Red Army. We start making more concrete spots, including some more BRDMs. They get engaged by a TOW missile launcher, and we're starting to get the first outlines of what the Soviet positions are. In the town itself, there are maybe a very small handful of Soviet infantry survivors. They aren't of any consequence. We've got a BRDM screen of recon infantry in the hill line, in the tree line in the upper left-hand side, and we have a lot of movement heading towards the hill. These are tanks and BMPs. So I really have a very compressed time window to figure out which way they're heading, how to orient my defenses, and to set up the best possible firing positions. The good news is either I'm going to be shooting into their flanks or up into their bellies as they crest the hill. The next couple turns sees what amounts to a reconnaissance battle emerge. I know it's kind of reductive. This would be the recon battle of a reconnaissance force. But we are, for the most part, able to take care of a number of BRDMs and BMPs that have popped out. That guy right there is kind of lucky. He lives for 2 full turns before I finally just put him out of his misery with the M60. The Soviet attack develops along 2 main axes of advance, one on my far right and one coming straight over the top of the hill. Now, I have limited lines of sight for the cavalry troop that are stationed on the reverse slope of the hill, but I do have observers farther back who are able to keep a good eye on the main thrust of the advances. I also have a little bit of an ace in the hole. The M60 that is with the engineer troops in Sichausen is in an excellent keyhole position to begin taking out the advancing BMPs. And this is exactly what I'm talking about right here. This tank can basically cover the entire right flank, and along with the dragon gunners in Sichausen, they're able to give the Soviets pause, which is enough for me to reorient my defenses on the hill proper to be able to handle their movements. It most definitely isn't a one-sided type thing. Um, the engineer platoon does suffer some casualties from direct fire from BMPs and the T-60s, but for the most part, they make zero spot on the deadliest aspect of my defense there, which is the M60 in the keyhole. It takes a couple turns, but the Soviet attack is completely blunted on the right flank. Um, between the laws, the M60 firing, and the Dragons, they're just caught in just an absolute buzzsaw. There is, however, a number of dismounted infantry survivors gathering together at the very top right of the hill, and I decide to call in the battalion mortars on these guys, and that pretty much finishes their part in the battle. Simultaneously, the Soviets are beginning to crest the hill, which offers excellent targets for the three M60s I have on the reverse slope. Alright, it seems like the Soviets have been stunned and they're in that spot where they don't dare move, but I still have a tactical problem. They have a significant force on the top of the hill that, as of right now, I can't shoot at unless they come at me, and they don't seem like they want to do that. So I've developed a pretty simple brute plan. I'm going to create my own ad hoc smoke screen using the smoke grenade launchers from the tow vehicles alongside the organic smoke shells fired by the Patton tanks. What we're going to do is set up a series of smoke screens, creep forward, use the smoke to hide us. Remember, the Soviets can't see through smoke yet. They do not have thermals. Whereas the American tanks do have the TTS system, which, if you recall from my last video, works exceptionally well. So what I'm going to do is create a series of smoke screens, creep forward, exterminate whatever's left on the hill. Basically, this comes down to a lot of patience. You have to allow the smoke screen to develop and then trust in the technology given to us by the good people at Raytheon to actually work. Right, because of the lack of any type of wind, I'm really able to put together a really nice smoke screen. I'm actually kind of surprised at how well this works. You move forward the tow launchers, dump smoke by their grenade launchers, uh, work in concert with the M60s firing their own smoke. You find the bad guys, in this case, a group of infantry cowering, and you take care of business. We were able to catch a couple of T-62s, excuse me, T-64s, and they never see what's coming. And it takes about 5 turns to more or less mop up whatever's left on the top of the hill. The whole thing worked extraordinarily well. I didn't lose anybody in this maneuver here. Plenty of time left on the clock, but the AI throws in the towel and I get a total victory. We're a long way from Kurtorf. Before I went into this battle, I really thought about, the things that I probably did wrong in my last scenario playthrough. One was not to really take advantage of the terrain as well as I probably should have. The other was not quite utilizing, I think, the technology I had. But if you look at the map, the Soviets are in pieces. There's just they're unable to move. You can see the tanks did the majority of the killing. There is the tow vehicles didn't do anything other than provide the smoke screen. This guy right here should be given some sort of a medal. He pretty much stopped that BMP charge cold himself. We've suffered some casualties in the engineer platoon, but overall, we got off real light, and the Soviet force is shattered. Looking at the composition of the Red Army, these guys are mostly green with regulars, which makes sense. They're a conscript army, whereas the U.S. Army is a professional army at this point. And you add up all these things, and just basically taking that hill or the reverse side of that hill made all the difference. Well, next up, I think I'm going to fly some IL-2, and then after that, we're going to go back to World War II for more combat mission. See you later.
The lonely, helpless Earth. The 21st century. The world of the future. And lurking beyond the cold, strange immensity of conquered space. Growing and spreading beyond the warped imagination of the greatest human intellect. Exploding in unspeakable horror. The green slime. The civilized world at war with alien form, whose slimy touch means instant, horrible death. Invaders from beyond the stars. The green slime. Robert Horton. Luciana Paluzzi. Richard Jacob.
You make too many mistakes. You're not right for command.
This is my command, and I'll manage it.
Two men struggle for survival in the infected remains of a diseased universe.
Don't ask any questions.
One woman searches for a last chance to save the human race from the desperate hunger of the green slime. A battle in space against faceless beings. A cosmic nightmare that sends you into the incredible, berserk world of green slime! Green slime!